from kind of
マラハバ
pandemic patterns
という
to
ことで
now
本
reopening
日もや
patterns
ってい
in
きましょう
the case that maybe
ウイクラ
people are ordering less takeout
我
now
がチーム
and
ブレイク
going
ギ
to
ャラクシーはで
restaurants
すね
more.
ビジョンがありまして
That's right. So we've heard from economists that the
そこを最
categories
初に
to
ね
watch
説明
for
してい
these
こうと
declines
思いま
are the
す
grocery stores, as I mentioned, and then also transportation
まず
and warehousing. So
現
couriers
在の
are
位置として
really
はで
just
すね
like
トップ
mail
プレイヤ
delivery
ー
people, but there are also
12
people who work
デ
in
ィビジョン
Amazon
12 っ
warehouses,
てい
for
ったところ
example.
にいま
And
す
when people
まあ
stop
ここですね
ordering as much online, it could be that
で
these
スーパー
places
スター
pare down
X ここを
staff.
狙っていると
That said,
い
it
うと
seems
ころ
like
なんですけ
some
ど
of the shift
まあその前にね
in
スーパースターがあるんで
like online
まずは
grocery
ここを
might stick to some
きっち
degree.
り
They won't be as high as they
昇
were
格して
in
ね
the height of the
行きたい
pandemic.
という
But
と
it
ころ
might be
で
that we do have overall higher
まあ今
employment
12
in some categories than we did
なので
say in
13、14
February of
まあ
2020.
20まであって
Okay, and so then going back to what we were just
上位
talking
3
about
チームがね
manufacturing, you know,
昇格
you
できるんで
mentioned some of the supply
まあ
shortages that have, for example,
いけ
been
なくはない
affecting auto manufacturing. It
目
seems
指
like
せ
a
なく
lot
は
of
ない
the analysts,
と
you
こ
know,
ろ
in the
なの
takeaways
では
I've
ない
been
のかな
reading
というふう
since
に
the report
思いま
came out
す
this morning
ま
are
あスー
also
パース
pointing
ターまでは
to,
ね
you
な
know,
ん
the
とか
fact that some of
いくん
these
じゃない
auto
かなっていうふう
manufacturers
には
have
思いま
announced,
すまあ現在
you know,
81
fewer
年目ということ
seasonal
でまだまだ
work
これからのチ
stoppages
ームですね
and shedding of
はい
shifts.
アソシエー
You
シ
know,
ョン
in the
は
coming months,
EMAAR
I
とい
think
っ
a lot of
て
people have July circled on the calendar.
まだ
So
まだ
is
協
the
会
idea that some
募
of
集
these
してるんで
supply
どし
side
どしね
constraints
募
that
集してい
don't
ただき
necessarily
たいです
relate
ね
to labor market factors, but more relate to, you know, just
まあ
input
その
factors.
何をするかって
Is
い
the
うと
idea that
ま
that is
あア
going
ソシエーショ
to
ンの
kind of
イベン
resolve
トがある
itself
ん
in
で
the
すよね
next couple months as
まあ
well?
そこに参加していい
I
成績を
I
収めれ
believe
ば
so, and I
まあ
think that kind of
テ
also
ストポイントだっ
points
たり
us to
FP
kind
ポイ
of
ン
the
ト
Fed's
が
take
もらえて
on all
まあ FP
kind of
FP
all
であ
of
れ
the
ば
jobs data that we've been
例え
getting,
ば
and the fact that
チ
you
ケ
know
ットとかアイテム
there
と
was a
か
lot of discussion
icon
before the report of kind of
と
what was Goldilocks
ト
for
レ
the
ードすること
market
が
and
できるん
kind of
で
what people
まあ
were
エクスチェ
looking
ンジで
for,
ね
and you
そ
know
こで
there
取
are
引が
so
でき
many
る
factors
という
happening
感
right
じにな
now
ってる
that
ん
it's
で
almost
ね
like this
まあ
perfect storm
デメリ
of
ットではないのかなという
of
ふうに思いま
virus
す
and
なのでね
supply chain
ぜひ
issues and
あの
unemployment
協
benefits
会
and school closures
入り
and
たい
kind of all
と
of
いう
these
時は
things that
EMAAR
frankly until we get
EMAAR をね
past
選ん
a
でい
good
ただけれ
portion
ば
of
な
it,
と
it's
思い
going
ま
to be
す
pretty hard to put our finger on
EMAAR ですね
exactly what's happening.
はい
So kind of similar, you said, like, you know, kind of there was a month circled,
それではね
I think you believe, I
本
believe you
日
said July or August, but
スケジ
you
ュール
know,
を確認して
some
い
of
くとで
this
す
too,
ね
I mean, it's
第
kind of
6
looking
週
towards
目とい
the
うことで
fall when we
まあ
get out
FC
of this
秋
surge of issues to kind of
まあ
figure
ユ
out
ーザーチームなんです
what's
けど
really going on here. Because a
まあ
lot
現
of
在
it
のね
right now
リーグ
is
順位表を見ていき
thinking
ま
of it
し
as
ょう
like this whole
まあ6位です
collaboration
ね
of
まあ
of
3勝
challenges.
してて3勝
And
1
that's
引き分
been
け
part of
2
the
負け
challenge to, you know,
っていう
not
感
just
じですか
interpreting this
ね
data,
相手
but
は
also predicting kind of
う
where
ん
these numbers are going to go. I mean, we've seen economists really struggle over the course
ま
of
あ
the pandemic, and especially in
得
recent
点ア
months,
シストラン
to
キン
put
グ
their
も
finger on things
ウ
such
ェルベ
as
ッ
the
クが
jobs
まあ
report
ウェ
in
ル
terms
ベ
of
ッ
what
ク
kind of
バーディ
numbers that we
3
may
位
get.
でアシストランキングは
Yeah, and I think
ウェルベ
both
ッ
of you have been
ク
doing
アン
some
サル
good
リーが
reporting
2
on
アシスト
that,
ずつ
you know, over the last couple of weeks, certainly since the last jobs
という感
report
じで
that
すね
caught everyone so off guard.
793
Do you guys want to talk maybe a little bit about,
いけるんじゃ
you
ない
know,
かな
some
普通
stuff
に
that the forecasters, you know, might be trying to, you know, kind of get a handle on this kind of strange period we're in for reading these reports over the next couple months?
It really seems like forecasters are holding on to September as the time where
まあ
things
これは
will
で
start
すね
to
ブルー
normalize
ムバー
because
グの
schools
ね
will be open and
エコノミック
supplemental unemployment
エコノミ
benefits will
ッ
have
クニュー
expired.
スを
But until then, we're told to
聞いてる
expect
感じですね
volatility, and so it could be that in June we get a massive
まあ
gain,
最近
and
は
then in July it's more
そうね
tepid, or vice
こう
versa.
いう
And
生
so
活が
it's
多
sort
い
of
か
a thing
ら
where while we have these
まあなんか
median
ツイッターで
estimates
ス
that
ペ
we
ー
look
ス
at
が
to gauge where the numbers might lie,
やってて
it really
まあ
is
その
impossible
スペース
to
をね
come close as we've seen in the last 3
聞き
months
な
or
がら
so. And so it's really about
なんか
just
いろい
being
ろ
patient
やるじゃないけど
to see where we are this fall, as
そうい
we
ったことが
mentioned.
増えてきてますね
Right. Okay. So maybe let's, we've been talking a lot about the establishment survey, what's going on in different industries. Maybe let's move over to the household side and talk about some of the demographic data that we got in this report. Reed, is there anything that jumped out to you there in terms of, how the unemployment rate is progressing and, kind of the composition of that number?
Yeah, absolutely. So there were kind of two main things that stuck out to me. And one was based on this idea of duration of unemployment. So, kind of over the course of the pandemic, we've talked a lot about this category of long-term unemployed, which is those who have been out of work for 27 weeks or longer. Kind of what that's been showing us for months is that kind of a lot of people who were unemployed at the start of the pandemic have been unemployed for a very long time. But I would say a huge silver lining to this report was actually the decline that we saw in the number of long-term unemployed in May. And we actually saw that category of 27 weeks or longer declined by 431,000 people in May. And that was the most since 2011. So that suggests that a lot of Americans who lost their jobs early in the pandemic are finally returning to work. That's not to say all of those people joined the workforce. It's very possible some of those people fell out of the workforce, which is problematic in terms of participation. But it's definitely something to watch, and something that when you see a number that's big of a decline, it's kind of like a tangible thing that you can hold on to that folks are going back to work. Another thing that stuck out to me, just kind of getting into ages and demographics a bit, is that the teenager unemployment rate fell by a huge amount. So teenagers, kind of thinking 16 to 19 years old, and it fell by 2.7 percentage points, which kind of in the grand scheme of things, compared to other categories that define things like half a percentage point or
buddy.
Seeing that big of a number is kind of exciting, frankly, and it shows that teenagers are filling these summer jobs. But just a kind of fun, quirky tidbit that I thought was interesting is that 16 to 19-year-old unemployment rate category is now actually lower than the unemployment rate for those ages 20 to 24, the next age group up. And that's actually the first time that the teenager unemployment rate has been lower than that 20 to 24-year-old range in records dating all the way back to the 1940s. So there was definitely like a bit of a shift in that kind of who's taking those summer jobs and kind of what that looks like. But Olivia, do you want to dive into some other details?
Yeah, I thought I would spin over to talking about how the Federal Reserve is sort of looking at these numbers. Lately, there's been a big discussion about whether or not the economy is overheating and if that might mean the Fed has to adjust its discussion about tapering and about raising rates. And economists that I spoke to today mentioned that the Fed's forecast for the unemployment rate for the end of the year as of March was that it would fall to 4.5%. And, we're still in the high 5% range. And in order to get there, it would require us adding about 500 or 600,000 jobs per month to sort of climb back towards that 4.5. And so given that our report this month was just, over 500, between that 5 and 600,000,
スペースはね、
it really,
なるべく
it
作
really
らない
shows
よう
that
に
is on track
ポゼッションでね、
what it's and that this isn't
ボー
going
ル
to
を
mean
奪う
that
と
they're
いう作
changing their
戦にね、
discussion or,
変更ですよ。
pushing up their discussion about tapering or about raising rates. But Matt might have some more perspective on that as well.
だからそのラブ
Yeah,
じ
no,
ゃな
I
い
think
の。
that's exactly right. I mean, I
何
think
回も今までやってるけど
they're
さ、
kind
そ
of
れでさ、
looking at this
決まったことなくない？
certainly these last two reports have been somewhat less job creation than expected. But to your point, Olivia, it keeps them on track to get this conversation about the next shift in stance going at least sometime in the next couple of months. So that probably won't be at their upcoming meeting 2 weeks from now, but it very well could be at their meeting at the end of July, perhaps in August. That could be August. So that was something to keep an ear out for. I guess another aspect of that conversation that gets us kind of back into some of the demographics that we're seeing in the employment report is just what's happening in terms of recovery and how it's progressing for different groups. So, I know one thing we've been talking a lot about over the last several months really is just looking at some of these variables by race and ethnicity and gender as well. And just looking at the numbers for today, it's really striking. If you look at, employment to population ratios, for example, it seems like there's a lot more racial disparities among women than among men. So, when you look at men, black and white, they are kind of recovering at about the same pace. Hispanic or Latino men are lagging, but there's just this huge gulf when you compare, say, white women to black and Hispanic women. Do you guys have any thoughts on, what might kind of account for that big racial disparity, particularly among women?
Yeah, I can share a little bit on that. And I just wanted to say, if you're just joining us,
Yes,
your
buddy.
Bloomberg
Buddy.
reporters,
Yes.
the data from today's monthly employment report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that was asking me about demographic data and wide disparities. Earlier this week, I actually spoke to an economist about why the employment rates for black women are seeing slower recovery than some of the other demographic groups. And she mentioned to me that one aspect of that is that black women are often employed in service industry, and those jobs were hit hardest by the pandemic, and so it's been harder for them to return to their jobs, or maybe that the jobs that they had haven't even really come back yet. One example is like Broadway. There are a lot of black women employed there that I've interviewed and spoken to. Their jobs aren't even there yet because Broadway is so close. Another factor there is that often, communities of color have been hardest hit by the virus itself, and that has meant that schools in those areas have been closed longer, and so, women that have young children have had to stay out of the labor force for childcare, maybe at higher rates than in regions where schools have been open full time for longer. So, there's a couple things at play here, but this is something that the Fed is really watching, and they said that they won't really make major moves until they start to see a more broad-based recovery.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, under the Fed's new framework, they're talking a lot more about, not just aggregate employment statistics and the, overall employment recovery, but, making sure that it's more equitable and that it's widespread across different groups, which is why, one of the reasons why we're so much more focused on this data these days. And, to your point, Olivia, I think a lot of this is perhaps due to temporary factors that are going to start resolving themselves in the next couple months as schools reopen, people get more vaccinated, and some of these service industries reopen. And so it kind of makes, parsing these data a little difficult right now. And just given the, sort of Fed policy timeline, and, where they're headed with this tapering conversation, it doesn't really look like this particular aspect of the employment conversation, just in terms of what is happening with different groups and sort of the unevenness of the recovery is really going to play into that tapering conversation much. But I think what's going to be really interesting is once we get, the ball rolling on tapering of asset purchases, and once we get later into the year when we're, starting to see all of these factors that are kind of temporarily weighing on the data start to resolve themselves. I think this, period between, tapering of asset purchases and then the, first potential rate hike over the next year or two, that's where, some of these demographic disparities in the jobs reports are going to really start coming into play and really, making the monetary policy conversation very interesting in a way that it just hasn't been in the past. So, we're at a point right now where markets are kind of primed for a rate hike at the end of 2022. The Fed is saying, probably not till the end of 2023 or even later. But, the question is just, at what point are we going to get rid of some of this, unevenness in this recovery? Could it take even longer? that's certainly the way that previous cycles have played out. So I think we're set for a very interesting period of Fed watching here. As we move past the next few months and get into a more normal state of affairs in the labor market. So yeah, I think we're coming up on 30 minutes here, so probably a good idea to wrap soon. Reed, Olivia, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll just finish it out by sort of looking forward to the next couple of months.
ハットトリック。
That are sort of big boomers.
まだまだ健在
The
だ。
unemployment rate to fall to around 4.7% by the end of this year, and then sort of continue to go into the low 4% into 2022.
一回右に
And
行
it's
っ
important to keep
て
in mind that before the pandemic,
右に
the
行
unemployment
ってか
rate
ら
was
の
below 4%.
戻るっ
And
て
so I
いう
think that
ね。
really just goes to show that while we're seeing super meaningful improvement, we are coming out of a crisis that is historic in nature, and we haven't seen this amount of job loss in decades or even hundreds of years. And so while it's positive news, it's always going to be there's always going to be bumps in the road as we emerge.
さあもうあとはもうハイクロ
Right.
ス
Good
と
to
いう
keep in mind. Reed, any final thoughts?
もう
Jess, thank you guys so much for
全攻撃で
listening.
出せる。
I know it's really fun to do these, and we very much appreciate y'all taking the time. And questions are always appreciated as well.
Yes, absolutely seconded. Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your Fridays and have a great weekend. We will see you back here next month and do this again.
ああ、間違った。
Take care.
全攻撃はまずいね。これはディフェンスがいなくなるわ。
Going through. Can't get the better of his opposite number.
カウンターカウンター。いや
Hoists it forward. Font does well there. Alert.
ー。うわ。
That is it. The referee has seen enough. Great day for attacking football. The artists have painted their pretty pictures. Only 1 team in it.
まあちょっとハイライトをね、
What do you think?
見ていきましょ
Well,
う。
remember there was a good tone setter for a football
Bird.
match. That was it.
Bird.
First minutes, first shot, first goal. And it's
全部バーディーが決めた。
Well, that's it from
まあ
us.
サールから
Thanks
ね、
very much,
この
Jim.
クロスを
It's a
ね、
very good day to you
決
from
めて
both
ね
of us.
まあ、ここのね、早い段階でのこのクロスっていうのはね、良かったかなというふうに、ここから上げたアーリークロスね。うん。これはいい判断じゃなかったのかなっていうふうに思います。で、長友ね。いやー、これはね、もうちょっと早い段階でパスしておくべきだったのかなっていうふうに感じますね。はい。で、このフェリックスも、もうちょっと、なんだろう。こういう時こそ持ってね、安全な位置まで持っていってシュートがいいのかなと。これはね、まあ、決めてくれたけど、こっちからは同じような感じで、また決めてくれたという風なね、素晴らしいね。素晴らしい。ということで、レポートをね、振り返っていきましょうということで、振り返る見ていきましょう。ミリトンにも上がったよ、ミリトンが。まあ今、明星のブースターを使ってるんでね、まあ結構早く明星が上がってね、ホールオブフェイムになっていくんじゃないでしょうか。さあ、バーディーがね、3点決めて2位に一気に浮上したというところで、まあ、今後またどうなってくるか見ものですね。アシストはファブレガス。飛ばしてしまった。はい、ブルーノさんから来ましたよ。 頼むよ。モチベーションアイテムくれよ。モチベーションのアイテム。モチベーションアイテムが相当欲しいな。モチベーション。てか、これあれじゃん。選手じゃなかった。トレーナーか。おっと、ブルーのはずがあったね。アゲイン。オーマイゴー。おほほほ。トレーニング。オッケー。あ、これでまた上がるかと思って上がらないか。さすがにね。2位上がったからね。アンサルディ、そっか、今トレーニングしてるのか。テクニックかな。はい。ということで、本日はここまでですね。また次回の動画でお会いしましょう。